It's the pinnacle of one's career in the field of coaching, to coach at the highest level in professional basketball, to coach in the NBA, but not only that, coaching for one of the most historic franchises in the game of basketball, the Los Angeles Lakers, to coach a team that has produced the most NBA championships in league history, tied with the Celtics of course, multiple Hall of Famers, a team that has always been center stage under the brightest lights, and one of the biggest markets in the league is what every prospective coach hopes to one day achieve. Or is it? Because in recent years, the head coaching job for the Lakers organization has seen such a high level of turnover with often unrealistic expectations placed upon the coaching staff that taking the job to be the head coach for the Lakers is almost as good as a death sentence to be fired within 1 to 2 years. Just ask Frank Vogel, who won the team a championship in 2020 and was fired just 2 years later, or maybe recently Darvin Ham, who took the team to the conference finals last season, all but to be fired this year. Since Phil Jackson left the team in 2011, the Lakers have gone through 7 head coaches, not including interim head coaches, but hired as permanent head coaching positions, 7 of them in a 13-year span. Only one of them having lasted more than 2 seasons, which was Luke Walton, who was in the role for 3. Any coach that takes on the head coaching job for the Lakers is instantly on the hot seat from the moment they take that role. And while some of the previous head coaching firings have probably been justified in recent years, at the end of the day though, a lot of the Lakers' issues stem from poor roster construction, chemistry, and fit on the court. And so after the Lakers fired Darvin Ham for a disappointing season in which the Lakers were yet again a play-in team and getting bounced in the first round of the playoffs, the question then became, well, who do the Lakers hire from here? As it stood, there weren't a lot of good options. If you're looking for NBA head coaching experience, you're talking about coaches that were either fired from their previous roles as head coaches, or you're looking at brand new first-time head coaches in the NBA, or just first-time coaches in the NBA period, whether a head coach or an assistant. And while the initial speculation was that JJ Redick was the front runner to land the job, someone who I actually respect a lot for his basketball knowledge and analysis, but zero coaching experience on any level, and because of that lack of coaching experience, we then got the news that kind of came out of nowhere that the Lakers were zeroing in on back-to-back NCAA champion UConn head coach Dan Hurley, who, while he doesn't have any coaching experience in the NBA, has been coaching for nearly 30 years between high school and college basketball and is known for one of the best player development coaches around. That he was suddenly the front runner to take this job, a coach that they believed would be that next franchise staples such as Phil Jackson and Pat Riley. But unfortunately for the Lakers, while they made a compelling offer, some might call it even a Hail Mary of an offer for a coach who has never spent a single second on any bench in the NBA period, a 6-year, $70 million deal, a contract that would have made him the 5th highest paid coach in the NBA. Dan Hurley has turned said offer down to remain as the head coach of the UConn Huskies, who are in pursuit of their 3rd straight national title, something that hasn't been done in college basketball since the days of John R. Wooden at UCLA. But while the question now is, what's next? Who do the Lakers pursue among the list of candidates for their head coaching vacancy, which we'll talk about? I actually think the Lakers dodged a bullet here in Dan Hurley turning them down, and I'll explain why in this video. As always, if you're new to the channel and you like this type of content, it would mean a great deal to me if you subscribe to help the channel grow, and in return, I'll be providing more NBA content like this. Now, of course, most will agree that Dan Hurley is a hell of a coach. He's a masterful tactician when it comes to the X's and O's of the game and offensive schemes to get the most out of his roster. Not only that, but he's an excellent players coach and is one of the best recruiters in the NCAA. Like, not only did UConn win their 2nd straight national title, but they went on to do so in dominant fashion, finishing their season 37-3, landing the #1 seed in the tournament, and winning every single one of their tournament games by double figures. Simply put, teams didn't stand a chance against this squad. And let's also not underestimate just how difficult it is to win back-to-back championships in the NCAA when you consider the sheer number of programs across college basketball and the fact that the postseason is just a bunch of single elimination games. It's not like a 7-game series like you would see in the NBA playoffs. The last team to do it was, of course, the Florida Gators, led by Billy Donovan in 2006 and 2007. But as great of a coach as Dan Hurley is, and his resume and credentials back this up, it's an entirely different ballgame to coach a league of grown men getting paid millions of dollars to play the game. Managing egos at the NBA level with a bunch of grown men who are stuck in their ways and have been playing the game for most of their life compared to a bunch of 18 and 19-year-olds who look up to you as a mentor isn't always the easiest transition. And this is where I think the Lakers dodged a bullet, despite a lot of media outlets claiming they fumbled the bag here and not offering him a more compelling contract like the $100 million deal that was rumored to be in the works when all this news came about. First and foremost, this would have been Hurley's first time coaching in the NBA. Not even just head coaching, but coaching at any level in the NBA period. And as I mentioned before, there have been very few great college coaches who have successfully transitioned and done well in the NBA, like a Brad Stevens, maybe Billy Donovan, although as a Bulls fan, I would disagree with that point. But if you look at guys like Rick Pitino, John Calipari, Hall of Fame level coaches, some of the best college coaches in history came to the NBA and were terrible. Both coaches really struggled to adapt to the longer, grueling schedule of the NBA, using their grinded-out approach against superior talent, and of course, managing egos. Like I said before, managing egos in the NBA is an entirely different story than coaching and mentoring young kids. Other college coaches like Fred Hoiberg, Tim Floyd, John Beilein also had successful careers at the collegiate level, but a very different story when they were given the reins of an NBA roster. And that would have been the biggest challenge for Hurley, in my opinion, because while the Lakers could have certainly used player development of some of their younger guys, especially for their 2 new players they're about to draft, but for the most part, this is a veteran Lakers team that is looking to win and compete now. And you're going to be coaching arguably the biggest ego in the NBA, the oldest player in the league who's been playing in the NBA as long as the kids Hurley has recently coached were alive on this earth. For Hurley, building a relationship with LeBron James is not like building a relationship with an 18 or 19-year-old kid that looks up to you. Like, let's be real, as great as LeBron is, he's one of the greatest players to ever play the game. His longevity is unmatched by any player we've ever seen, but he's not an easy superstar to coach. LeBron is about to get his 10th head coach of his career, and a lot of coaches over the course of his career were let go because of LeBron's influence and the team's desire to build around and try to win with him over the head coach. But even LeBron aside, most of the Lakers, assuming the roster for the most part stays intact, which remains to be seen, but you have to assume they're going to continue to try and keep winning now. A veteran roster, as long as LeBron remains on this team, Anthony Davis, Taurean Prince, D'Angelo Russell, Spencer Dinwiddie, for D'Lo and Dinwiddie anyway, for both of those guys if they happen to remain with the team. But all of these players have been in the league for a long time, far off from their college days and remembering what it was like to have an emotional, rah-rah type coach. I don't think that would have been the type of personality that would have meshed well with the Lakers. Like, as much as it's important to be a highly skilled tactician of a coach, extremely knowledgeable of the game, a big part of coaching in the NBA is player relationships, especially building relationships with your star players, as well as managing the grind of an 82-game season for veteran players. I mean, something a lot of college coaches coming to the NBA haven't been able to navigate well. And so while I know it's disappointing if you're the Lakers, yeah, some have said it's embarrassing because it was such a public thing. They made it seem like this was all but locked up and they were going to have their coach for the future of this franchise, and then he opted out for less money and a watered-down NCAA. College basketball, which is not as popular as it used to be. Sure, it's kind of a bad look that a well-respected coach turned you down despite getting a massive long-term contract, and I do think Dan Hurley will regret it down the line for not taking the job, but I really don't think he was the man for this role. And part of that is me being a little biased because I've always said, in my opinion, that great college coaches are more often than not unsuccessful at the NBA level, but giving Dan Hurley a 6-year contract and realizing maybe a year or two into it, yeah, this isn't going to work. And then what? You owe this guy millions of dollars still left on his deal, paying yet another coach who still had money left on his deal to do nothing, just like they did with Frank Vogel, just like they're doing now with Darvin Ham. Look, if anything, this says more about the Lakers as an organization right now than it does Dan Hurley not taking the job. This is not a good job opportunity. Yes, it's the Lakers, it's a historic franchise, a global brand, but right now, this franchise is in a bit of a mess. A superstar who's about to turn 40, Anthony Davis on the wrong side of 30, they have a bunch of aging veterans who aren't moving the needle for them, they aren't at all close to competing for a championship, and so by taking this job means you're being set up with unrealistic expectations to get this team to compete when they're just not there. You have that pressure to perform, but then also to try and navigate this poor roster construction and timeline where it's very possible you could be going through a number of years of rebuilding. This is not an attractive job for a lot of head coaches who have seen the retention rate of recent coaches, who have seen these coaches being used as scapegoats for a poorly constructed roster. And so for someone like Dan Hurley, who has it made in Connecticut, where he's well respected, has a winning team, has more say in the recruiting process and roster building process, in a way you could say he dodged a bullet as well. Because as enticing of an offer as this was from the Lakers, he was being set up for failure from the get-go, versus a situation where he can continue to grow his coaching career. And for the Lakers, they need to do some soul searching internally as an organization to figure out who they want to be before making an all-in move for a coach that may or may not pan out. That should be their focus right now. So in my view, both parties lucked out in this scenario between Hurley staying in a winning situation and continuing upon his success, and for the Lakers not overcommitting to a college coach with no NBA coaching experience just to make a big move when the bigger issue is deciding on the overall direction of this franchise. And so next for the Lakers is, well, who's it going to be? Who's the next guy on the list? Sounds like JJ Redick is back in the running, a guy who has no coaching experience whatsoever. James Borrego, who I think would be an underwhelming hire personally. Whoever they bring in, though, more likely than not, won't be in that role for a long time, if history gives us any indication of what to expect from this franchise. But let me know what you guys think. Who do you think will be getting the Lakers head coaching job? Let me know in the comments. As always, be sure to subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.